Hello, dear viewers. Today, we bring you a story that will spark both outrage and admiration. The main character is a powerful black woman CEO, a woman of wealth and influence who commands respect wherever she goes. Yet shockingly, inside a luxury car dealership, she was publicly insulted in front of everyone, dismissed and humiliated by arrogant employees who thought they could get away with it. But they underestimated the wrong person, because just 15 minutes later, this CEO turned humiliation into a stunning comeback and fired the entire management on the spot. This is not just a story about dignity. It's a powerful lesson about arrogance and how justice can arrive faster than anyone expects. Stay with us until the very end to witness this dramatic journey, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss the inspiring and surprising stories we share every day. That morning, sunlight streamed through the gleaming glass windows of the city's most luxurious car dealership. This was the playground of the wealthy elite, people who loved to flaunt their riches with shiny new cars. The employees stood polished in suits and ties, their half-smiles worn like masks, as if they were doing customers a favor just by acknowledging them. Into this glittering stage walked a woman. She wore a deep blue business dress, her heels clicking confidently against the marble floor. She carried only a sleek, simple handbag, no flashy designer logos. Yet her presence lit up the room with quiet authority. She was Alicia Johnson, a powerful black woman CEO in the finance industry, a woman who had built a massive empire and graced the cover of Forbes. But irony struck hard. What happened next had nothing to do with her wealth or status. As Alicia approached the reception desk, the receptionist's eyes swept her up and down, pausing at her modest earrings and that unbranded bag. A smirk crept across their face. "Sorry, ma'am. This area is for actual buyers, not window shoppers." The word window shoppers was delivered with a sharp edge, dripping with condescension. The air inside the dealership shifted instantly. Other customers turned their heads. Some chuckled under their breath, others raised their brows with curiosity. Alicia stood still, calm as ever, but her eyes flashed like lightning before a storm. She didn't need to announce who she was. Alicia was used to being judged on appearances. But this time, the public insult wasn't just an attack on her. It was a challenge to the dignity and pride of countless black women who had fought to earn their rightful place in society. And Alicia Johnson was not the kind of woman to let anyone trample on her self-respect. The atmosphere in the showroom had turned tense and absurd, almost laughable. A woman who had sat at negotiation tables with billion-dollar corporations was being dismissed as nothing more than a window shopper. Alicia smirked slightly, not in amusement, but in the way someone does when they stumble upon a bad joke being played too seriously. The floor manager, a pot-bellied middle-aged man, strode over quickly. Clearing his throat, he gave Alicia a quick once-over before turning to the receptionist. "That's right. People like her usually just come to look around. No way she can afford one of these. Don't waste your time." His voice carried through the spacious showroom. A few customers chuckled, and a young couple whispered to each other, "Definitely can't afford it. Just look at her outfit." Alicia stood unmoving, her expression calm but her gaze sharp as steel. She could have walked away, as she had done many times when others judged her by appearances. But this time was different. She took a deliberate step forward toward the desk, her voice smooth yet commanding. "Oh, fascinating. You're so confident you can categorize customers within seconds? Then your dealership must be leading nationwide in sales, right?" Her words sliced through the air like a blade. The receptionist shifted uncomfortably, while the manager let out a mocking laugh. "We know who can buy and who can't. One look at you tells us everything." In that instant, every curious eye in the showroom fixed on Alicia. They had no idea the woman standing before them was the chairwoman of a financial empire worth billions. And they certainly didn't know that within just 15 minutes, the fate of this dealership's entire management team would be rewritten. A heavy silence filled the room. The chuckles and whispers from earlier faded, replaced by a tense curiosity. Alicia slowly walked toward a gleaming silver sports car displayed in the center of the showroom. She ran her hand lightly across its polished surface, then turned her gaze back to the manager. "You just said I couldn't afford to buy a car here, didn't you?" Her voice rang out, sharp and deliberate, each word cutting through the silence. The manager smirked, folding his arms across his chest. Exactly, that's the truth. People like you're only here to look. His words poured fuel on the fire. A few employees smirked in agreement, while customers leaned in, eager to watch the spectacle unfold. Alicia nodded slightly, her eyes gleaming. She reached into her bag and pulled out a sleek black card, the kind reserved only for the ultra-wealthy. The metallic shine of the card caught the light, and for a brief moment, it seemed to suck the air out of the room. Funny enough, I didn't come here just to look. I was planning to buy 3 cars today, one for myself, one for my mother, and one for my company. But after hearing the way you speak to me, I'm starting to wonder, is this dealership even worthy of my money? The atmosphere exploded. Some customers gasped audibly, others covered their mouths in shock. Several employees froze, their faces draining of color. And the manager? He stood rooted to the spot, his forced grin hardening into a mask. He had no idea that the woman he had mocked was about to dismantle his entire career, piece by piece. The silence stretched, heavy enough that everyone could hear their own heartbeat. Alicia stood tall, her gaze blazing, cutting through the manager's thin facade of arrogance. A young employee, clearly new to the job, whispered frantically to a colleague, "Oh my God, that's a black card." He just insulted a super client. But the manager, stubborn and flustered, raised his voice, clinging desperately to his pride. "You think flashing that card makes us bow down? Here we choose our clients. Not everyone gets to buy." The room erupted in uneasy murmurs. Some customers shook their heads in disbelief. Others quietly stepped back, not wanting to get involved. Alicia, however, smiled, a cold, chilling smile that froze the air. She took a slow step forward and spoke with calm authority. "Thank you for showing me the true face of your management. You haven't just insulted a customer, you've insulted the very value of this brand. And unfortunately for you, I happen to have the power to change everything." With that, Alicia pulled out her phone and dialed a short number. Her tone was calm, but every word landed like a hammer. "I need an emergency meeting with the board of directors of the corporation that owns this dealership chain, immediately." The manager froze, eyes wide, his face draining of color. The receptionist trembled, unable to look up. None of them could believe it. The woman they had just insulted wasn't just wealthy enough to buy any car in the showroom. She held the power to fire the entire management team in a single stroke. The scene felt like the eerie calm before a storm. Everyone knew something devastating was about to happen, but no one realized just how fast it would arrive. Alicia's phone call pierced through the dealership's arrogance like an arrow. The entire showroom sank into a suffocating silence. Moments later, the manager's desk phone rang, shrill and unforgiving, like a death knell announcing his downfall. He fumbled to answer, and his face drained of color almost instantly. On the other end, the regional director's voice was cold and sharp. "We just received a report from CEO Alicia Johnson. She is currently at your showroom." "What the hell have you done?" Sweat trickled down the manager's forehead. Customers in the showroom began whispering loudly, piecing the truth together. The woman humiliated before their eyes was one of the most powerful CEOs in America. Alicia stood calmly, her eyes glinting as if she were watching a stage play that the arrogant fools had scripted for themselves. Inside, there was a trace of bitterness. This wasn't the first time she had faced discrimination. But today, she decided her response wouldn't just be for herself. It would be for the thousands of women who had endured the same indignities in silence. The manager set the phone down with trembling hands, his voice cracking. "Ms. Johnson." "I didn't know." Alicia cut him off, her tone sharp as a blade. "Exactly. You didn't know. And that's precisely why you don't deserve the position you hold." The room practically erupted after Alicia's words. Employees who had worn smug grins moments earlier now stared at the floor, avoiding her gaze. A few customers quietly pulled out their phones, recording the entire scene, fully aware they were witnessing a moment destined to go viral. A middle-aged woman, a loyal customer of the dealership, whispered to her husband, "My God, that's Alicia Johnson. I read she once saved an entire financial empire from collapsing. How could they treat her like this? The manager, arrogant just minutes earlier, now trembled so badly his voice cracked. "Ms. Johnson, I'm sorry. This was all just a misunderstanding." Alicia tilted her head slightly, a cold smile curving her lips. "A misunderstanding? You publicly insulted me in front of everyone here. That wasn't a mistake, it was your attitude. And that attitude has poisoned the way this dealership treats its customers." A young employee, cheeks flushed with shame, stepped forward timidly. "Ms. Johnson, I apologize on behalf of everyone. Not all of us are like that. Some of us truly respect what you've accomplished." For a moment, Alicia's gaze softened at the girl, but then she turned back to the manager, her voice firm and unwavering. "An apology isn't enough. What comes next will be a lesson, not just for you, but for this entire system." At that very moment, the dealership's glass doors swung open. Two men in sharp black suits strode in with an air of authority. They were senior representatives from the parent corporation, the company that owned the entire dealership chain. Their arrival sent a jolt of panic through the staff. One of them walked directly up to Alicia, offering a respectful nod and a sincere smile. "Ms. Johnson, we received your call. We deeply apologize for the humiliation you experienced here today." The entire showroom fell silent. Customers filming the incident nearly forgot to breathe. No one had expected the corporation's response to be this swift. The manager's face turned ghostly pale. His hands trembled as he tried to speak in his defense. But the corporate representative cut him off, his voice like ice. "You no longer have the authority to speak here. Effective immediately, you are suspended. And trust me, you will pay the price for your ignorance and arrogance." A ripple of whispers spread across the room. Some customers snickered in satisfaction, while the remaining employees bowed their heads in shame. Alicia stood tall, arms folded, her gaze sharp as a blade. Inside, one thought echoed, "This is only the beginning, and this lesson won't stop at just one dealership." The manager's face was ghostly pale, his eyes wide in disbelief. Just minutes ago, he had strutted with arrogance, mocking a woman he thought unworthy. Now, he was publicly suspended, humiliated in the very same spotlight he had tried to use against her. Alicia walked toward him, each step echoing like the strike of a gavel. She stopped inches away, her eyes icy, but her voice calm, calm in the most terrifying way. "You've taught me an interesting lesson, that power can blind people into thinking they can measure someone's worth by appearances alone. But today, I'll teach you something far more valuable. Dignity and respect cost more than any car in this showroom." The room was silent. Customers, employees, even the corporate representatives hung on every word. Turning to the executives, Alicia gave a firm nod. "This is not just a personal matter. I want a full investigation into the entire dealership chain. If arrogance like this has become systemic, then it's time to tear it out by the roots." One of the representatives nodded quickly, his voice shaky but resolute. "We'll take immediate action, Ms. Johnson." Alicia's lips curved into a smile, not the bitter smile from earlier, but one of triumph. In that moment, every eye in the room saw her not as just another customer, but as a woman of power, someone who turned public humiliation into a weapon for change, reshaping an entire system with her strength. News of the incident at the dealership spread like wildfire. Within hours, social media exploded with clips of Alicia being publicly insulted and then turning the tables in spectacular fashion. Hashtags like Black Woman CEO and Respect Matters flooded Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. The online outrage was deafening. "I can't believe this kind of thing still happens in this day and age." She didn't just fight for herself, she fought for everyone who's ever been belittled. This is why I admire Alicia Johnson. She never stays silent. The media quickly picked up the story. Reporters stood outside the dealership, broadcasting live as if covering a national crisis. Major headlines blared across news sites. Black woman CEO insulted at car dealership. 15 minutes later, entire management suspended. Inside the dealership's corporate office, phones rang off the hook. Dozens of customers canceled their deposits. Some vowed never to return. A brand once associated with luxury and exclusivity had overnight become a symbol of arrogance and shame. Meanwhile, Alicia sat quietly in the back of her private car, her gaze steady and thoughtful. She knew she had just triggered an earthquake, but to her, this was more than just a personal victory. It was a wake-up call to an entire system that had grown too comfortable in its arrogance and prejudice. Less than 24 hours after the incident, the business world began to respond. Prominent CEOs, power players in the auto industry, finance and media all shared posts about Alicia. A female tech CEO wrote on LinkedIn, "Alicia's story isn't just about a car dealership. It's a mirror for every business to reflect on, how they treat customers, especially women and people of color." A finance mogul added, "If a brand dares to insult someone like Alicia Johnson, imagine how many ordinary customers have been mistreated without ever being noticed." The story quickly became a hot topic on primetime talk shows. Hosts praised Alicia passionately. She didn't just stand up for herself, she stood up for an entire community. This is a wake-up call. Arrogance and discrimination no longer have a place in modern business. Meanwhile, the parent corporation behind the dealership chain faced enormous pressure. The company's stock price began to plummet, nearly 8% wiped out in just 2 days. The board of directors convened emergency meetings, while the PR department scrambled desperately to contain the firestorm. And in the middle of all this chaos, the name Alicia Johnson shone brighter than ever, not just as a successful CEO, but as a living symbol of courage and justice. The next morning, Alicia's office phone wouldn't stop ringing. Call after call came pouring in from major networks, CNN, CNBC, BBC, all vying for an exclusive interview with the CEO whose story had shaken the nation. Her personal assistant, a young woman named Mariah, clutched a thick stack of media requests. Her voice trembling with disbelief, "Ms. Johnson, the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal both want front-page features. Oprah has also extended an invitation for a sit-down interview this week. I've never seen the media move this fast." Alicia sat calmly behind her desk, twirling a golden pen between her fingers. Her face carried no trace of smugness, only the poise of someone fully aware of the weight of the story she held. "Mariah," she said evenly, her tone firm, "we'll choose the outlets that matter most. This isn't just about me being insulted at a dealership. This is about sending a larger message. No one has the right to demean others because of prejudice or arrogance." Mariah nodded eagerly, her eyes bright with admiration. She knew her boss wasn't reacting as a victim, but as a leader, turning personal humiliation into a tool for societal change. Meanwhile, outside those office walls, Alicia's image dominated every headline. The photo of her standing tall, her piercing gaze inside the dealership showroom was shared millions of times overnight. People were calling her the woman who turned 15 minutes of humiliation into 15 minutes that redefined justice. That evening, millions tuned in as Alicia Johnson appeared on a nationally televised live broadcast. Under the bright studio lights, she sat across from the famous talk show host. Dressed in an elegant black dress, her posture perfectly straight, Alicia radiated both authority and warmth. The host began, "Ms. Johnson, the entire country has seen the shocking video from the car dealership. Why did you choose to respond so strongly instead of simply walking away, as many might have?" Alicia smiled faintly, her eyes locking with the camera. "Because I know that if I stayed silent, tomorrow there would be dozens, maybe hundreds of others enduring the same humiliation. This was never just about me. It's about the respect every customer deserves, regardless of race or gender." The studio erupted in thunderous applause. Many in the audience rose to their feet, chanting her name. On social media, comments poured in instantly. "This is real leadership. She's not just a CEO, she's an icon." As the program ended, Alicia's eyes shone with resolve. She knew she had achieved something far greater than buying a car. She had sparked a national conversation about dignity, fairness, and the way people choose to treat one another. After the live broadcast, Alicia's office phone once again lit up with non-stop calls. But this time, it wasn't just the press, it was major corporations. household name brands across multiple industries. A marketing director from a rival car manufacturer emailed her that very night, "Ms. Johnson, we admire your courage and influence. If you're interested, we'd love to invite you to serve as the global ambassador for our new line of vehicles." A tech conglomerate sent a more direct invitation. "We'd like to offer you a seat on our strategic advisory board. Your leadership mindset is exactly what we need to drive real change." It wasn't just industry giants. Small business owners and even nonprofits began reaching out as well. They saw Alicia as a new kind of symbol, someone who turned humiliation into power, and used it to spark a movement. Mariah, her assistant, looked at the growing stack of invitations with barely contained excitement. "Ms. Johnson, this feels like a wave unlike anything I've ever seen. They don't just want business with you. They want their names tied to yours, to the image you've just created." Alicia smiled quietly. She knew true power didn't come from how many cars she could buy or how much money she could spend. Real power came from turning a moment of injustice into fuel for change. And now she had the world's attention. The next morning, Alicia's desk was buried beneath stacks of invitations, draft contracts, and dazzling offers. Mariah set down yet another pile of proposals, sighing with both excitement and exhaustion. "Ms. Johnson, if we add up all these offers, we're talking hundreds of millions. But we can't take them all." Alicia nodded slightly, her sharp eyes steady with calm resolve. She knew true power wasn't about grabbing every opportunity. It was about choosing the right ones. "Mariah," she said slowly, "we don't need them all. What we need are partners who understand this isn't a publicity stunt. This is a long-term commitment to respect, equity, and corporate culture." She then opened her laptop and drafted a reply to the car manufacturer that had reached out the night before. The message was only a few lines long, but it carried immense weight. "I don't need a contract to polish my image. What I want is real change in how you treat your customers and your employees. If you can deliver that, then we can talk." Mariah's eyes widened as she read the email. You just turned down a multi-million-dollar deal in one sentence?" Alicia smiled, her expression radiating pride. Money has never been the only goal. Values are what endure. In that moment, Mariah realized why Alicia had become a symbol. She wasn't just a successful CEO. She was a leader who could turn humiliation into an opportunity to redefine justice and the very ethics of business. Just days later, the ripple effects of Alicia's words began to take shape. Corporations that once relied on glossy PR campaigns were now forced to shift their approach if they wanted any chance of working with her. The rival car manufacturer sent a follow-up letter with a completely different tone. "Ms. Johnson, we have taken your request very seriously. Starting this week, we are launching mandatory global training programs on equality and customer respect for all employees. We would also be honored to have you oversee this process, should you accept." A major retail giant went even further. In a press conference, they announced that a percentage of their profits would be allocated to a new fund supporting Black women entrepreneurs, directly inspired by Alicia's story. Mariah scanned through the press releases, hardly believing her eyes. "Ms. Johnson, they're actually changing. Not just to win your partnership, but because they're afraid of being left behind if they don't." Alicia nodded quietly. She knew the pressure she had created was no longer about her. It had become leverage that forced massive corporations to re-examine their core values. She looked at Mariah, her eyes glowing with resolve. "That's exactly what I wanted. Not another contract, but for them to realize if they can't respect their customers, then they don't deserve a place in the market." A week later, Alicia hosted a press conference at her company headquarters. Dozens of reporters crowded the stage, cameras flashing nonstop. The world was waiting. How would this powerful CEO move forward after turning humiliation into a global earthquake? Alicia stepped up to the podium, her face calm, but her eyes fierce with pride. She spoke slowly, each word resonating through the room. "Today, I am officially announcing partnerships with 3 strategic allies, companies that didn't just make promises, but have already taken real action toward change. They didn't approach me for profit alone. They came to build a business culture rooted in fairness and respect. In the audience, Mariah sat quietly, her eyes glistening. She knew she was witnessing history. A woman who had once been humiliated in 15 minutes was now redefining how an entire industry operated. Alicia ended her speech with a gentle smile. And to those who still choose arrogance and discrimination, remember this: customers may forgive, but justice never forgets. The room erupted in thunderous applause. News outlets instantly flashed headlines. Alicia Johnson turns humiliation into power, partners with industry leaders to drive global change. While Alicia was rising to new heights, on the other side, the corporation that owned the car dealership chain was drowning in chaos. Their stock price continued to nosedive. Within a week, billions in market value had evaporated. Headlines screamed, "Consumers boycott brand over discrimination scandal." A company once associated with luxury and prestige was now synonymous with arrogance, insult, and disrespect. Major business partners began fleeing. A bank that had financed hundreds of millions for the company announced it was reviewing its contracts. A leading insurance firm immediately pulled out of a joint campaign. Some dealerships within the chain even had to shut their doors temporarily as customer traffic collapsed overnight. Inside the boardroom, the atmosphere was as heavy as a funeral. Senior executives bickered furiously. Some blamed frontline staff, others blamed the media. But in the end, they all faced one undeniable truth. In just 15 minutes, one CEO had brought the entire corporation to its knees. One board member muttered bitterly, "We haven't just lost customers, we've lost our honor." And that's something no amount of money can buy back. Amid the crisis, the corporation's internal structure began to crack wide open. What was supposed to be a strategy meeting turned into a brutal blame game. The CFO slammed his fist on the table. "We've lost nearly 10% of our stock value in just days. Who is going to take responsibility for this catastrophe?" The head of marketing, face flushed with anger, shot back, "Don't pin this all on us." This wasn't a PR failure. This was frontline management humiliating one of the most powerful CEOs in America. All eyes turned to the regional director, the executive directly overseeing the dealership in question. He wiped sweat from his brow, stammering, "It was just a minor incident. We could have contained it if the press hadn't blown it out of proportion." A bitter laugh echoed from the chairman of the board. Minor? A minor incident that made millions of customers turn away, dozens of partners cut ties, and the entire market erupt in outrage? This isn't minor. This is a disaster, and every one of us is paying the price. The room fell heavy with silence. Then voices rose, demanding accountability. Names were put on the chopping block, including the regional director and even the head of human resources. Everyone knew the harsh truth. To save the corporation, sacrifices had to be made. And this was only the beginning of a painful purge. In the days that followed, headlines across financial media screamed of a purge inside the corporation. First, the regional director fell, then the head of HR. Even a vice president of operations was forced to resign. Every morning brought a new headline. Another senior executive resigns amid dealership scandal. Corporate giant faces unprecedented wave of departures. Customers were delighted. Investors were panicked. Each fallen name was another knife cutting deeper into an already fragile market confidence. From her corner office high above the city, Alicia watched the news unfold. Mariah set a cup of coffee on her desk and chuckled softly. "Do you see this? They're all falling one by one. And it all started with 15 minutes in a showroom." Alicia remained quiet for a long moment, gazing out through the window. She knew this wasn't merely the collapse of a few individuals. It was a wake-up call to an entire industry, one that had grown far too comfortable with arrogance and bias. "Mariah," Alicia finally said, "what matters isn't how many seats they lose. What matters is whether they learn anything from losing them." Mariah nodded, her eyes glowing with admiration. She understood that for Alicia, true victory wasn't watching others fail. It was turning that failure into fuel for lasting change. At last, under immense pressure from the public, investors, and even government officials, the corporation behind the car dealership chain was forced to issue a formal statement. A large press conference was held, broadcast live nationwide. On stage, the chairman of the board, rarely seen in public, bowed his head as he read the apology. "We extend our deepest apologies to Ms. Alicia Johnson and to all our customers. What happened at our showroom was unacceptable. It was not just an individual's mistake, it was a failure of our corporate culture. We pledge to make systemic changes to regain your trust." The words echoed, but the audience wasn't quick to forgive. On social media, thousands of comments erupted. "Too little. Too late. We want action, not apologies." If it weren't for Alicia, they would never have admitted fault. In her office, Alicia watched the entire press conference on a large screen. Mariah turned to her and whispered, "They really had to bow before you." Alicia simply nodded, a faint smile at the corner of her lips. To her, the apology wasn't the ultimate victory. It was only the beginning. Because she knew that without real change, words were just empty promises. Taking a slow sip of her coffee, her eyes glinted with resolve. The real battle has only just begun. After the corporation's public apology, Alicia didn't stop. She knew this was the golden moment to turn public outrage into real reform. A week later, Alicia held a keynote event at the city's largest convention center, attended by thousands, CEOs, investors, students, and everyday workers who had once been dismissed or mistreated. Under the bright lights, Alicia stood tall on stage as thunderous applause filled the room. "We've all seen what happens when arrogance and prejudice are allowed to thrive within a system," Alicia began, her voice strong. "But I'm not here to retell the past. I'm here to talk about what we can do to change the future." The hall fell silent. Every eye locked on her. "I am proud to introduce the Justice in Business Initiative, a nationwide project where we will partner with corporations, universities, and social organizations to train, monitor, and ensure that every customer and every employee is treated with the respect they deserve." The crowd erupted in applause, some rising to their feet, cheering. Online, the live stream of the event hit millions of views within hours. From the wings of the stage, Mariah's eyes glistened. She realized Alicia wasn't just addressing an industry, she was laying the foundation for an entire generation of businesses to follow. Not everyone was thrilled about Alicia's Justice in Business Initiative. After the event, several major corporations, many with their own history of scandals and criticism over customer mistreatment, felt the pressure tightening like a vice. In a private boardroom atop a glittering skyscraper, a handful of CEOs whispered among themselves, "She's trying to force a new set of rules onto the entire industry. If we go along, everything will have to change. And change means losing profit." Another scoffed, "This is just a fad. Let the outrage die down and everything will go back to normal." But not all of them sounded so confident. Some feared that openly opposing Alicia could spark a boycott worse than the dealership scandal. Meanwhile, back in her office, Alicia read leaked reports about the brewing resistance. Mariah frowned deeply. "They're pushing back, Ms. Johnson. A few corporations are even considering forming an alliance to weaken your initiative." Alicia took a sip of tea, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Good. If they're this afraid of losing their grip, it means the initiative has hit exactly where it hurts. And I've never been the kind of woman to back down from resistance." Her eyes gleamed with fire. She understood that opposition would only make the movement stronger and impossible to ignore. A week later, rumors of a shadow alliance against Alicia leaked into the press. Headlines blared across media outlets. Major corporations secretly plotting to block Alicia Johnson's initiative? Public outrage exploded once again. Instead of weakening Alicia, the backlash only turned her into a hero, a lone warrior standing against a hidden empire. During a live televised forum, Alicia didn't dodge the subject. Instead, she faced the camera directly, her voice clear and unflinching. "If anyone believes profit matters more than human dignity, let them say it openly. I'm here, ready to debate. But remember this: silence, secret meetings, and backroom deals only prove how terrified they are of change." The audience erupted in applause. Online, The hashtag #StandWithAlicia shot to the #1 trend within hours. Meanwhile, cracks began to form within the so-called Shadow Alliance. Some CEOs who had planned to resist suddenly reconsidered, unwilling to let their companies be branded as enemies of the people. Mariah, scanning the latest headlines, turned to Alicia with shining eyes. "You've turned their opposition into fuel for society. Who would dare stand with them now?" Alicia smiled, her gaze razor-sharp. "Exactly. Once you shine a light, the shadows have nowhere left to hide." Just days after the live forum, Alicia unveiled a bold new strategy, the Justice in Business Pledge. It was a concise but powerful document, requiring corporations to publicly commit to 3 principles: eliminate discrimination in all operations, place customer respect above all else, maintain transparency in management, and accept accountability for violations. At a press conference, Alicia declared, "There is no room for ambiguity. Either you sign and prove you're ready for change, or you reveal that profit matters more than dignity. And if that's the case, be prepared to face the public." Her words echoed across every major outlet, triggering massive pressure. Consumers launched campaigns urging boycotts of companies that refused to sign. The hashtag #SignOrStepDown flooded social media, quickly becoming a global movement. Inside corporate boardrooms, executives squirmed. Some rushed to sign the pledge to safeguard their reputation. Others hesitated, only to face mounting outrage from employees and customers alike. Mariah turned to Alicia, her voice filled with awe. "You've turned an initiative into a public challenge. Now they can't hide in the shadows anymore." Alicia smiled, her eyes unwavering. "Exactly. In the face of justice, there are no gray areas. You either stand for change, or you get left behind." The day Alicia unveiled the Justice in Business Pledge, it sent shockwaves through the corporate world. Within 48 hours, dozens of major companies had already signed on. The media hailed them as the first movers. A renowned tech firm issued a statement, "We're proud to be among the first companies to sign this pledge." Because profit only matters when paired with respect for people. A global retail chain quickly followed. "We believe change begins with accountability. This is the right step forward for everyone." Consumers celebrated, and social media erupted with praise. Early signers saw an immediate boost in public goodwill and even in sales, showcasing the overwhelming power of public opinion. But on the other side, a handful of large corporations stubbornly refused to sign. They dodged press questions, offering vague statements instead. "We support fairness, but we need more time to review the details." The public wasn't buying it. The hashtag #I'mYourWhyNot sign began trending, with thousands tagging these corporations directly and demanding answers. If you've got nothing to hide, why hesitate to sign? Mariah stared at the screen filled with angry tweets, then turned to Alicia. They've put themselves in direct opposition now. Alicia folded her arms, her gaze sharp as steel. Exactly. This isn't just about signing a pledge anymore. It's about one question. Are they standing with justice? Or with the shadows of the past? Among the corporations refusing to sign, the loudest was Titan Motors, a giant in the automotive industry. They held their own press conference, claiming to clarify their position. On stage, Titan's gray-haired CEO spoke with arrogance. We support fairness and customer respect. However, we do not believe that one individual, no matter how powerful, has the right to dictate standards for an entire industry. The statement was like tossing a match into gasoline. Headlines instantly read, Titan Motors challenges Alicia Johnson. Social media erupted with millions of furious comments. Alicia wasted no time. Just hours later, she appeared on a live television program, facing the provocation head-on. Her voice was sharp, her words cutting like steel. Titan is correct about one thing. No individual can dictate an entire industry. But let's be clear, it isn't me forcing them. It's the customers demanding change. And Titan Motors should remember, it's the customers who decide who survives and who disappears. The studio audience roared with applause. Online, the hashtag #OnCustomersDecide shot straight to #1 on Twitter. As Alicia stepped off stage, Mariah's eyes shone with pride. "You just turned their attack into another chance to strengthen your position." Alicia smiled faintly, replying with words that rang like a warning bell. "The harder they push back, the stronger I become." The fallout hit Titan Motors faster than anyone expected. Within 24 hours of their CEO's arrogant statement, the company's stock plummeted by 6%. Customers began canceling orders en masse, many posting videos online declaring, "We won't buy cars from a company that dismisses justice and respect." One viral clip showed a group of students protesting outside Titan headquarters, holding banners that read, "Respect is not optional. Justice over profit." Inside an emergency board meeting, Titan's executives were in chaos. A sales director shouted in frustration, "We're bleeding market share to competitors every single day," all because he wanted to grandstand at a press conference. The company's leadership fractured, while major shareholders applied pressure, demanding a change in course. The media piled on, comparing Titan to companies that had signed the pledge and were now reaping the rewards of public goodwill. Meanwhile, Alicia sat calmly in her office, watching the headlines scroll across her screen. Mariah handed her a chart with a sly smile. "See this? The stocks of companies that signed the pledge are climbing. Titan's is in free fall. That's the power of public opinion." Alicia nodded slightly, her eyes sharp as steel. They wanted to challenge justice. Now justice is answering. Under immense pressure from the public, shareholders, and customers, Titan Motors was forced to hold another emergency press conference. The hall was packed with reporters, cameras flashing endlessly. The atmosphere felt like everyone was waiting for a corporate death sentence. Titan's CEO took the stage, his face pale and weary. Clearing his throat, he tried to sound composed. "We want to make it clear. Titan Motors has always valued fairness and respect for our customers. Perhaps my previous statements were misunderstood." Reporters immediately cut him off, firing relentless questions. "Will you sign Alicia Johnson's pledge or not? Do you admit Titan put profit above dignity?" The CEO faltered, sweat beading on his forehead. And then, amid the chaos, the doors at the back of the hall swung open. Alicia Johnson walked in. The room erupted in murmurs, cameras whipping around to capture her every step. Dressed in a sleek black suit, Alicia strode to the front row, her gaze piercing, her presence commanding, like a judge arriving to deliver a verdict. She didn't need a microphone. Her voice carried clear and firm. "No one is forcing Titan Motors to sign anything. But remember this, the customers are watching, and it is the customers who will decide your fate." The air grew suffocating. Titan's CEO froze in place, while reporters documented every second the moment Alicia Johnson, once publicly humiliated, now stood as a symbol of power, holding a corporate giant accountable before the world. After the tense press conference, Titan Motors spiraled into an unprecedented crisis. Their stock kept free-falling, customers canceled orders en masse, and social media overflowed with chants of protest. Inside Titan's emergency board meeting, the atmosphere was thick with despair. A major shareholder slammed the table. "We have only two options left: sign Alicia Johnson's pledge or watch this company collapse." A veteran executive, still defiant, growled, "If we sign, it's as good as admitting defeat. Titan Motors will be seen as bowing to one individual." A younger executive, newly appointed, shot back, "No! If we don't sign, Titan will be branded as the enemy of the people. And once the customers walk away, we're finished." The room erupted in chaos, voices clashing like a storm. But the fear on their faces said it all. Outside Titan headquarters, hundreds of protesters gathered, raising banners high. "Justice over profit. Sign or step down." From her office, Alicia watched it all unfold on a live feed. She felt no gloating, no rush to push further. Her eyes only carried resolve. Because she knew Titan Motors had cornered itself into a final crossroads, a choice that would decide the fate of the entire corporation. The next day, Titan Motors announced they would hold a nationwide press conference to reveal their final decision. The nation held its breath. The media called it Titan's Day of Reckoning. The press hall was packed, millions watching live on TV and streaming platforms. The tension was suffocating, like the moments before a verdict is delivered. Titan's CEO took the podium, his face gaunt, eyes shadowed from sleepless nights. Clutching a sheet of paper, his voice trembled but rang out clearly. After careful consideration, the Titan Motors Board has decided to sign the Justice in Business pledge initiated by Ms. Alicia Johnson. The room erupted. Reporters leapt to their feet to capture the historic moment. Outside Titan headquarters, protesters cheered wildly. Within minutes, the hashtag #Titan signs swept across social media. From her office, Alicia watched quietly. Mariah practically jumped with joy. They signed! You forced the giant to bow before justice. But Alicia only smiled calmly. She spoke softly, as if reminding herself, this isn't my victory. This is the victory of everyone who has ever been dismissed, yet still stood tall, demanding respect. Her eyes gleamed with resolve, for Alicia knew the real journey was only beginning. Titan Motors' decision to sign the pledge became breaking news around the world. TV networks from the UK, France, Japan, to South Africa reported it, calling it a historic turning point in global corporate culture. Major newspapers ran bold headlines: Consumers force auto giant Titan to kneel. Financial Times, Alicia Johnson, from humiliated victim to global icon of justice. Le Monde, Black woman CEO reshapes an entire industry. New York, Times social media exploded. Millions shared the image of Alicia entering Titan's press conference, her gaze sharp as a judge. The hashtag, or Justice in Business, trended worldwide. Politicians, activists, even the United Nations praised her. A European Parliament member declared, "What Alicia Johnson has achieved isn't just for American customers. It's a message to the entire world. Justice knows no borders." In her office, Mariah scrolled through international headlines, her eyes shining. Do you see this? They're calling you the woman who made justice a global business standard. Alicia smiled softly, her gaze steady. The world is watching us now. And my responsibility is no longer confined to one nation. It's to spark a global movement. A month later, Alicia Johnson was invited to speak at the Global Economic Summit in Geneva. Thousands of delegates, including world leaders, top CEOs, and social activists, gathered to hear her. As she stepped onto the stage, the spotlight illuminated the woman who had once been publicly humiliated inside a car dealership. But now she stood tall as a symbol, commanding absolute silence from the audience. Alicia began with a gentle smile, her voice warm yet powerful. I once stood in a room where people thought they could decide my worth just by looking at me. But today, I stand here to remind you, a person's true value is never defined by status, skin color, or gender, but by how we choose to treat one another. Thunderous applause filled the hall, with many rising to their feet, she continued, her eyes shining. Never forget, it only took 15 minutes for arrogance to bring down a corporation. But it also only takes 15 minutes for one voice, one action, to spark a movement. Justice is not a slogan. Justice is action, it is choice, it is the legacy we leave for the generations to come. When Alicia finished, the entire summit rose to its feet, applauding endlessly. The press hailed her speech as the moment that redefined justice in the 21st century. From the audience, Mariah's eyes welled with tears. She knew Alicia Johnson was no longer just a successful CEO. She was a global icon, a woman who turned humiliation into strength and left behind a legacy, making justice a standard in business.